I wanna start in a very weird way, yeah? So let's talk as if we are like talking to each other, yeah? Like we're
Mm,
not actually recording, okay?
yeah. Okay, we're starting. I'll start. Okay.
No, no, I start.
I start.
Okay, you start.
Okay, you start. You start. It's okay. I will follow up.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Um okay. Welcome back to No Boundaries, and this is the Who's Next series with ABD.
And Fardan.
In this series, we interview young professionals who have lived, studied, and worked in more than one country. In today's episode, we are joined by a hard-working individual who lived most of his childhood in Nigeria, moved to the UAE or Dubai to study architectural engineering, and currently he's residing in Abu Dhabi where he's working as an architectural engineer.
And that individual is Abubakar. Hello, Abubakar. How are you doing?
Thank you, Fardan. Thank you, Abdurrahman, for the invitation. I'm good, Alhamdulillah, and I'm doing great. It's a good day today.
Yep. Nice. And hope everything is good in Abu Dhabi with the whole COVID thing. Everything, every day it's like new regulations and stuff. How's it going there?
Yeah, I think at the moment, everything's much relaxed. Like a lot of people are going back to work, but most companies like tend to give their employees like the option to actually either work from home or work from the office. So it's kind of back to an individual like decision to either go out or stay at home. But so far, I think the COVID the response of the country towards COVID is actually very good. So it's been great. I mean, they have um, what do you call it? They have home to home testing, and this is actually conducted on a free basis. So that's very proactive, let's say.
So, Abubakar, thank you for coming, and I guess this is going to be an interesting episode. Could you tell us a bit about yourself and what have you done, like for your bachelor's, and a bit about your work, short introduction about your work, what's your job title, what do you do, and the countries that you have lived, and yeah, anything else that can be kind of interesting for our listeners as an introduction.
Okay, so as you all know, I'm Nigerian, and I started to actually get into um, and actually I studied my bachelor's in architectural engineering from Heriot-Watt University, and my interest in architecture actually started a very long time ago. So I've always had the passion for design, just to create things, sketches, and you know um, come up with creative crafts. So this kind of drove me right from childhood into you know just thinking towards design and objects and uh, the creation of things to make things to function. And so um, growing up, I one of the most life changing, let's say, steps that happened to me that brought me here today is my exposure to the software known as SketchUp. So I came across SketchUp when they had the version SketchUp 7. That was around 2008. And ever since, I have spent most of my weekdays just modeling houses, designing 3D models. And, I started to get bored of that over time and switched into product design. So when it comes to 3D modeling, this is something that really speaks of me in general. So coming to the university stage, I took on to study architectural engineering, though I wanted to study architecture initially. But before architecture, I actually wanted to go into automotive design. However, when I looked back at the fact that I would someday want to go back home, and the drive for automotive design isn't that much, I decided to take something that was much safer. So just eliminating the risk, sort of. And that took me to architecture, but then I couldn't get into architecture because in Heriot-Watt, it was the only university that I got admission into. And what they had was architectural engineering. So I looked at the fact that I have been exposed to design already from home. And I decided to go into architectural engineering because it will give me a technical background to sort of back up my design with. So this was one of the major reasons why I took architectural engineering. In terms of where I've lived in Nigeria. I've lived in Chad, Jamena. That's Jamena, the capital. And Chad is just a neighboring country to Nigeria, so not very far, but entirely different cultures, colonized by the French. And the third place I've lived in is Dubai. So when I moved to Dubai, I only actually moved to Dubai for my studies, undergraduate programs. And after that, I got a job in Abu Dhabi and then moved there. So I've been in Abu Dhabi now for almost 2 years and counting. So that's currently my just brief history.
Yeah, that was very brief, Abubakar. I mean, you walked us through a lot of the things that has happened in your life. But like going back to like high school and your childhood, how was your school like?
Well, if I say I can describe my school, that would be very unclear because I wasn't actually during my childhood. I went to different schools. So when I was a kid, though so in Nigeria we lived in two places. Um, at first we used to live in my state, so that's Borno State, and in Borno State I attended. I only have a memory of me attending one school, but from some of the pictures of my childhood that I've seen, I think I might have been to more than one as well. But then I can just count that to be just one school. And so that school was Islamic and Islamic oriented. So they had a mix of both Western and Islamic education. And I studied there until my primary 2. I don't know what you guys call that. Maybe you call it like grade something. So I studied till primary 2, and then
Is primary two like grade, like going from like, is it grade two or is it like afterwards?
basically you have the nursery classes. So nursery from 1 to 3.
Yeah.
And then once you're done, you go into primary 1 and then primary 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the 6th primary, you write an exam into a junior high school.
Okay.
Okay. Grade 2.
Yeah. So that's grade 2, basically.
Okay.
So
So how many times do you graduate in Nigeria?
how many times did I graduate in Nigeria? That is like just once, actually.
Okay.
But then like my movement from school to school was very intermittent. And so from primary two, my father actually got a job in Abuja, so we moved to Abuja. That was around 2004. And in Abuja, I attended Roberto School in uh, in Abuja. That was for 1 year. So that was my primary three. So once I finished my primary three in Roberto, I moved to Turkish. Um, in Turkish, I spent around 2 years. So I did my
A Turkish oriented system, you mean?
yeah. So we used to have the name of the school is Nigerian Turkish International School. So it's basically owned by Turkish investors, and so the school was very what do you call it? It was very different in terms of systems and everything, the way they would deliver the daily classes and stuff like that. So I spent around 2 years in Turkish, and then I wrote my entrance examinations at grade 5. So I couldn't. I decided to give it a try. Usually you would have to do it in grade 6, but then I gave it a try in grade 5 and passed. So I got into junior high school. Getting into junior high school, I transferred. So I started my junior high school in another school, which was Pace Status. In Pace Status College, I spent 2 years of my junior high school, and then went to the last school where I graduated from, which is Ar-Rahman International School. So that was giving me again more of the Islamic, orientation, and the plus the Western education. And so this is in brief the movement or transition between schools that I've done.
So Abu Bakr, like you've talked to us about transitioning from, or not from during your transitions throughout your childhood or like school life. Were you doing any extracurricular activities while you were at school?
In terms of like sports, or well, I think in some of the schools that I attended, like we had clubs. So usually you would have to be a part of a club. And so sometimes you would have the music club or the dance club or the what do you call it, sketching club. So I was involved in these three mainly. I was never into really sports. So most of my school, I wasn't part of sports actually, but I did participate sometimes from peer influence. And my participation, let's say if I was to be asked if, okay, in terms of my participation, I wasn't always the lead when it comes to extracurricular activities. Like we had students who would be the ones to initiate. I wasn't part of those initiators, but then I usually would go with the ideas, and that's, I think, more about it.
Yeah, but you've spoken to us about like how you've joined the art club or music club. How did that change your personality or your attitude towards certain things?
Well, the one that actually got me a lot, or let's say, let me start with the music club. In the music club, I actually realized that I would be able to, play the instruments and create something out of it just by picking it up and, hitting the strings or hitting the the piano keys. And so one of the instruments that really got into me was the piano. And so I used to have this small piano back at home, and it was actually a gift from my aunt. And I was, I would play "Mirror on the Wall" by Lil Wayne, because that was one of the popular songs that we were like hyped with around school. So it was just sort of interesting that I could do that. And I did that all without any tutorials or anything. So till today, I want to push my skills in piano, but then I haven't really invested much behind it. But in terms of art, I really enjoyed the art classes. I enjoyed the perspectives in the art classes. So I was mostly attracted to, you know, like from my interest, I was more into sketching and more of the designing type. So I enjoyed art classes and technical drawing classes. So in the art classes, I would, understand perspectives, because we would have sometimes like portraits of, let's say, fruits. So the teacher would put like a few groups of fruits, and they would ask us to draw it. And sometimes just looking at it, the lines and how everything just comes together as a picture, this art class actually opened up my mind to perspectives. So this is actually one thing that up till today I use. This skill is something that up till today I use, and it helped me a lot in the technical drawing classes. Because if you were to be given just a cube, let's say, and someone just tells you that's a house, it will be very hard for you to put it into perspective, like how everything would appear, for example. Or even if the details are there, um, you need to understand the perspective, like you need to be able to grasp 2D 3D from 2D, and this is the sort of perspective that art gives you.
That was really interesting. Like you, I guess, being in that school, or like that school in which you mentioned about having being part of clubs, really, like, brought up your thinking. And like it kind of, like what I see it as, it kind of paved the way for you to get into this field that you're currently working as, designer kind of a thing that you are doing now. So yeah, I know we talked a lot about your school life. Like, if are there any important takeaways or lessons that you learned during your school life? And if to make it easier for you, what are like the three lessons, if you can describe, of that you learned during your school life that you still kind of follow? If it's not three, it is still fine, but I'm just giving a number.
Okay, so if you ask me for three things that I learned during school, is that when you're in school, usually you would take things pretty much for granted. So the studies that you're doing, you're probably not getting the right motivation for it. And so usually we're too young to actually realize that we need to orient ourselves to actually, usually the orientation I will feel is not enough. So how do you personally get the best out of school? This is one question that I've always had in my mind, and I think up till today I don't have the answer when it comes to just the school life. I'm not talking about university. So
Right. Like, I think I can agree with you on that point, because not even in school, but I don't know, we all studied at Heriot-Watt, and you would have come across individuals like, uh, it's not a nice word to say, but they were like kind of, spoon fed, and they were they had everything ready for them, and they didn't try to appreciate that. So yeah, those are some kind of things you start to appreciate, I guess, later on in life.
Yeah. So usually, I think that type of perception, it doesn't really affect you if you know who you are, and like you've been told what the world is about right from home. So how to actually get your child ready, let's say, for the right environment. And this is a topic that parents should be looking at, not even the students, because in school you must be very young. And what one thing that I can give as a lesson is that when you're gonna go into any public, let's say a place with people gathering, like, always keep yourself as who you are. Because if you go into the public, you find people of different status, situation, people of different backgrounds, culture. So not everything you will like, not everything will suit you, not everything will be okay with you, not everything will um, be to your expectation. And of course the world is not to be to your expectation, but also for you to actually fit in the right way. So usually in school environments, I think it's very important for an individual to be patient with whatever the situation is. And with time people learn each other. With time people learn about each other, and they develop a certain kind of understanding and trust. So just it's sort of like time heals everything, and time creates this unity and connection that you will have with these people. But most importantly, you have to listen to the people in the environment, listen to them carefully, understand them, give them a chance, sort of.
Yeah. So, how did these lessons help you while transitioning from like living in Nigeria to living in Dubai and joining Heriot-Watt University?
So I would think that not actually putting myself anywhere like above in terms of understanding, but I would think that as a person, I was always more cautious of what my behavior would impact, how my behavior actually would impact others. So one of the things that, and this is one of the things that makes me uh, a very, let's say, conservative person. So I wouldn't be quite expressive, rather conservative. It's sort of a weakness in a way, but then it's also opened up a lot of perspectives to the way I view things, and to the way I see people, and to the way that I would understand things in my social environment.
So, how would you, for example, describe the social setting that was in Nigeria versus the social setting that was in Dubai, for example? Like you were talking about how like that helped you to like understand or like get to know how people are feeling, right?
Yeah. So I would think that it can have something to do with the environment, but most importantly, I think this is some character or trait, let's say, that people pick up individually. Because if you compare, for example, even within a family, like, no two people, you'd find that sometimes the younger one is much more um, sensitive, and he sees more of the bigger picture than an elder one. So it's usually just a character or a trait, let's say, that someone gets, but it definitely has something to do with the environment. And I think one of the things is that for me as a child, I wasn't really into playing a lot, or, you know, um, I was usually sitting with like people above my age. So I think that kind of shaped my mentality. Because if we went home, for example, to back home to our state, I would usually sit with the grandmothers and, the elders and things like that. So the kind of conversation that these people have is entirely different from the kind of conversations that, my age mates would have. So just kind of that kind of exposure, I think it's opened up my cautious, let's say, um, sense to kind of just be aware of life more, to be more open to life, to see things in a much more, respected manner, in a way.
Right. I mean, you talked about things that influenced you as a lot. I guess the maturity, you're talking basically about the maturity that you get when you interact with people who are elder than you. I mean, that's something which not many young people do. And yeah, people like kind of look down upon the young people and they don't like share their experiences. But then interacting with old people kind of gives you kind of wisdom, I would say. So that was a really good, like, telling about where you can, or the ways you can increase your wisdom. So let's move back to your time in Dubai. So when you moved from Nigeria to Dubai, and like you'd have come with certain expectations for the university and your course, and did it meet your expectations? And how did you find it?
Actually, I found my course really interesting, and even though I wanted to study architecture and, automotive design, I found my course actually just fitting into a puzzle that I never wanted to create, let's say. But this kind of formed a bigger picture for me, because in my course I understood several aspects of architecture, and this was exactly what I understood of architectural engineering from the brief that we had to read before enrolling. And, it gave me several aspects, from plumbing systems, MEP, and all the technical things that actually form a building to function in an efficient and sustainable way. So as an architect, you don't get an in-depth knowledge of these things, but architectural engineering kind of opens up your world to seeing, um, you know a bigger picture of the product, which is buildings in this case. So in my first 3 years, because of the amount of passion that I had in the course and what it has to deliver, actually, I had this question for my professors that I really want to just get out of university at this stage and start life. Because I was seeing the picture of the building, like I knew that I could build a building, but then I just don't have the technical aspects of it. And this is one thing that actually pushed me into work, um, rather than continuing my studies. And
Abubakar, can you elaborate more on like what did you mean when you said you can actually build a building?
okay, so not build. Let me rephrase that word. You actually understand a building, so how it functions in terms of, just okay. So usually, as an architect, you would design a building thinking that larger glass area would let more sun in, but then give you a better view, for example. Yeah. Now this is good, and it's knowledge that you can get from any design course. But what architectural engineering does is, you know the properties of the glass, you know its behavior, and you know how to estimate the properties and actually get the values that actually determine this effect, or the values that actually form the foundation of this statement, which is a larger glass will give you more heat gains. Okay, and this knowledge is applied to the walls, it's applied to the roofs, and this all sums up to total heat gains, and that function is taken to estimate energy consumption of the building. Okay, because when you have a certain degree of heat in a space, you need a certain amount of energy to evacuate that heat from the space. So just understanding that aspect, you know, and being able to do like MEP calculations, duct sizing, and all that stuff, it gives you a very skeletal view of a building. So when you see a building, you kind of feel the building in terms of, you know, just it being alive.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of understand what you're trying to say. It's like what you learn, like when you see it in real, like you kind of feel that I can do that.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you can do that, and what you need to actually, you know, form an excellent package is just the right, let's say, mentorship.
Yeah, more, yeah, mentorship. And also like the thing is, like when we learn, like we kind of look at things and say that, and take it like for granted, and say that, yeah, I know how it works, and
Yeah.
I can design it something similar, or I can design something even better. But the thing that we kind of miss the whole point is like the practicalities of it. And like sometimes you might look at something and say that, yeah, I can design something better, or something even better functioning. But then the way something is designed is not just based on engineering. That's just one part of, like, it's like it's like needle in a haystack. You can consider it as like that, because there are so many things others involved. Like is that like manufacturable? If whatever you're doing, can it be done? Like, can it be made? Can it be manufactured? What are the economic aspects of it? And is the material available? Is it environmental friendly? There's ridiculous amounts of rules and regulations. For example, like if you consider like your building.
So this is actually one of the missing puzzles that I had when I was down during my years of studies. That if we're taking all these things and we understand the buildings this much, like, how do we actually put this together? And I wanted to see it all to come together. And you know, um, like you said, the manufacture things, the cost of, you know, these things that it actually takes to, the cost of development for these innovations, let's say, the everything, when you sit down and you question it, you see it kind of drives you, and you wanna actually know it. So imagine that you have the technical aspects and you have the um, you know, the artistic aspects, but you're not having the mobility aspect. So to mobilize these things, and I think this is something that I wanted to explore, and I knew school would not give me that. And you have to be in a proper place to actually learn that, and it has to be completely focused on a full package for you to understand that.
And was this why you jumped into work straight away after university?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I jumped into work straight away.
And did you find what you were looking for? Did you find the missing pieces to your puzzle, or is it still?
Mm, not really, actually. I haven't found the missing pieces of the puzzle, but aside from work, what I'm trying to do is to actually develop these missing pieces and try to do something, try to do something on my own, try to create something that will have this function for me to be able to visualize this whole thing in a picture, just the way that I want to see it.
And have you found out like how, or are you still in the process of finding?
Well, I'm still in the process of finding, but I think it's gonna, it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of close, but it still needs some time.
Right. So we are talking about work, right? So how did you find like how did you go about like looking for a job? Because we know like UAE is kind of a really small job market, and there's really heavy competition, because if as a graduate from there, like as a graduate from a university in Dubai, like you kind of have a bit higher salary expectations, but then you have graduates from South Asia who will work for 1/4 of the your expectations, because they just want to come to UAE and live. So that's kind of really demanding stuff, and especially construction is really demanding. And then like there have been kind of recessions, like it had its ups and downs. So how did you go about like looking for a job? Like, did the university help you, or was it your personal networking, or how did you go about that?
Well, the job I'm at at the moment currently was from personal networking. However, we tried to apply for jobs on our own and also through the university. So tried to get references from our professors, and tried to get them to connect us with some of the companies that we've interned with. Also a connection from the university. For example, I was interning with Diamond developers, and one of the things that we were called in to work for, it was more of a work outsource actually than an internship, and a team of 4 was selected, and I was one of the team, and we were supposed to conduct an energy model for the buildings in the sustainable city in Dubai. So that in that specific task, I was able to perform to a specific um, to a good level, let's say. And the CEO of Diamond Developers contacted me, and they wanted me to think about working with them as an intern, but I I always had this thing in my mind. It was a big opportunity and I saw it, but I always had this thing in my mind that, I'm here for studying and studies is my priority. And because I had exams, I turned down the offer. And one of the teammates that we worked with, she actually went on to take the position. And I think she's still working with them, which is also a good thing. And so apart from that, the other things that we have is,
So what type of work are you currently doing right now?
at the moment I am actually into architectural design. So I'm a concept architect, and we make sketches, we make 3D models, we do proposals for new projects. So usually in an architectural process, you have the first part, which is preliminary concept and design. This is the part where my department focuses on. So when a client comes to our company and says, he wants to build a building, we are the first team that actually starts to come up with the ideas and give a direction for the building in terms of function and how people would uh, use the building and things like that. So this is the key part of the concept team.
So you are also the department that gets, kind of lots of backlashes from other departments, because you are the kind of people designing everything, right? So you will have people from the structural saying like, what are you guys trying to do? This is weird. And you have the client coming back to you, like, saying, I need to change that, I need to change this. And like, when you do that, you have the, like, people from the other departments, like, kind of, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, you're that kind of department, like, from what you say.
Yeah, so in a way you can say we are the unrealistic department, but then this is part of, so how you actually gauge, let's say, a professional concept architect is the one that actually goes on to develop the unrealistic designs, but he knows what is the X and Y of it, like what's gonna delay the project or cause grief to the people working on it. Though this is what do you call it? This is something that you can address, but sometimes it's best not to address it, because when you think of companies like Zaha Hadid, for example, they don't limit based on dreams. Like they don't limit their dreams based on reality. They let their dreams drive the reality, and this is something that is unique in them. So companies like Zaha Hadid, architects like Foster and Partners, uh, and a few of them like big architects, uh, and
Do you think that, like, sorry for interrupting, like, but do you think, like, I know it's a good way of saying, like, your like, imagination should drive everything, right? But then, like, I've interacted with some of them. Thing is, like, they come up with really weird designs which they don't know or are not sure of will work, but they're like, I want to make this work. But you, as an engineer or someone who's designing it, is a struggle for you to try to convince them to, like, this is basically not possible, like, what do you want to do? So, and it's like they kind of don't want to change the design because they think it's like, it's really nice design. So do you think that, in the curriculum, like, I don't know, maybe of not architectural engineering, not what you did, but architecture, do you think that apart from, like, them learning to, like, sketch, or like, get, how do you call it, like, let their imagination flow, do you think that they should also learn a bit about this, a bit of structural engineering and all those things? Or, like, what is your view on this?
well, I believe that learning the technicalities for a designer will limit his ideas, because if you try to put what's already a standard, what's a it is good to know. It is good to know these details, because when you're working with other people, it makes it easier for you to work with them, because you know what they can do, like by the law, or let's say by the standards, and you know what they can't do by the standards. So for what they can't do by the standards, as a designer, having that background knowledge of what the standards have will kind of guide you in creating a new solution for this product that you're trying to convey. So I think it's important for everyone in the team, in an architectural project, to have some sort of knowledge of what the other person does.
So, wouldn't you say, like, you're saying basically that limiting one's imagination would not lead to like an outstanding design, right?
No. So basically, I'm saying that it's good to know these technical things, but then as a designer, you want to free your mind of these things. So yes, learn it, but then have control over your thoughts when it comes to the technicalities, at least till it's presented itself as a challenge.
But wouldn't you say like learning these things and fully understanding them would actually boost your design? Like I'm just thinking from the perspective of, like, for example, designing cars. If someone knows how air actually flows around the car and how drag works and how you can, for example, redirect it, then his design could actually incorporate all of that and at the same time look good. Like I'm like if we're looking for an example for like we can see Tesla right now. It doesn't look bad and it really has a low drag compared to like other cars.
Yeah, so I would agree. I would agree on that, and this is in terms of, because when you talk of a car, like aerodynamic properties, and when you talk about something in motion, the aerodynamics part is like a very sensitive part of it. But in terms of buildings, in this case, I would think that yes, you would wanna, like knowing how the wind flows affects your design, for example. But then, you know, yeah, you can actually say it happens the same way in buildings, because when you think about it, even in buildings, we have stuff like stack ventilation and stuff like that, and these are usually used as cooling strategies for the buildings. So if you have a technical aspect and a design aspect, you can create something very fluid actually.
Right. So that brings to the, like, people who are studying architecture, like, so coming back to my original question, do you think, like, is it important for them to know this stuff? Because, for example, someone who's a architecture who designs like cool stuff, right? But then he doesn't know how the air would behave with it, like how would there would be structural interactions, how to support it, will it be carrying load, etc. So do you think, like, because I'm trying to compare it with the architecture people in our department, right? So I felt like architecture was like one of the most secluded department which does not interact with anyone, anybody else, or any other engineering departments. It's just sitting there. And same thing was with architectural, but we started seeing you guys only in like third year, fourth year, when you guys were doing not even third year, fourth year, when you guys were doing stuff which basically we were doing, but you guys disregard all the important bits, or the bits that we as mechanical engineers consider as important, and you just do other stuff which is kind of important from the architectural perspective. So do you think, like, because I'm kind of coming back to this point, because, like, I've interacted with people who have no clue or how things are going to work. It's like, for example, someone designing a super, like, taking the car example, someone designing a super looking awesome car, right? Like, let's say following your methodology of, like, letting the ideas flow, the creativity flow. But then the drag is bad, then, and you have things that you can't accommodate in the car and stuff. So, like, these things happen because you have these people interacting with each other, and they know what the other department needs. And I feel architecture is something that's there, just there, like this design stuff, where, and it's kind of always a battle between architectural engineers and civil engineers.
Yeah, but I think here the interaction in the university isn't really the the, the thing, but to say that architects, even though they are not interacting with others, they do have some technical backgrounds, because they go through courses like construction technology and um, you know things to do with wind analysis and stuff like that. But yes, they may not be going down to actually conducting simulations like using ANSYS and stuff like that. However, we as architectural engineers do that. Now, if an architect knows how to use something like ANSYS, then that's an advantage for him. Like he can use it in terms of the, simulating wind direction, um, to see how the wind flow around his building will behave. So things like this. So it is, in a way, yes, they're not taking everything, but I think they're taking the major parts that they need to know to be working with others. Now, when you're working in the working when you're in the working environment, the the level of knowledge that you should have of what the other teams are doing is not really something in depth. But no, you cannot say that you know you're always knowledgeable or you know everything. So it's always better to always know more of what other people are doing, because the more you know, the more you're able to tame your professional aspect.
So, according to you, how do you think a building should be designed? Like, you have architecture engineers who know both of like both worlds, and you have architects who like know how to design better than architecture engineers in a way, because like they're really like just drawing some sketches. What's your ideal way? Like, what's the process? Have you
What
thought
about
about that?
civil engineer? You missed them, right?
I mean, I have, but like I'm just talking about designing, like from the perspective of like how it's gonna look.
So I think that in the process of design, we need more integration. And this is why these days you have the BIM processes. So BIM is basically building information modeling. Building information modeling lets you put in all the aspects of the design of the final package in one server, let's say. So if you log in as an architect, you'll see all the information presented by the structures. If you log in as a structures, you'll see all the information presented by the architect, both in form of 3D and 2D drawings, and also PDFs and stuff like that. So all references are interlinked and everyone has access to the same information. Now, this reduces the number of clashes. It makes the work, it makes the workflow faster. It reduces the amount of, let's say, questions that will be asked around, because sometimes someone is saying changes have been made, another person is saying he wants changes to be in the other way, and things like that. So you have little conflicts that actually cause a drag, and that takes people back to digging into who actually did the changes. But when you're working on something that's interconnected on the cloud, it makes everything visible. I still don't have a picture of what the full BIM model looks like, but then this is also something that I want to actually explore. So because
I mean, it's interesting to integrate all of that in a way where everyone understands and sees the change, how it changes. But like, who initiates, who designs first, or who compromises first?
yeah, so in here we're talking about two things: who designs first in terms of initiating the process, and then who what you know who compromises first. Now, it depends on the client. Most importantly, actually, it depends on the client, it depends on the architect, it depends on the company's targets. So this in itself is a big, what do you call it, topic. But then let's just say, in terms of, let's say, my position as an architect, I would think that the architects are supposed to initiate the design all the time. And when it comes to design how the building will look like, the architect has a stronger say, because when the architect communicates with the client, he gets all the information about what the client likes and what the client doesn't like. So when he comes back to the office, everyone has to work to provide what the architect needs. Now, structures, yes, sometimes you have issues and you need to make design changes, and that takes you away from what the client wants. So does the client have the budget to increase, or let's say research for a better structure? Then he can get back to the consultancy and say, no, I want the design to be as dreamy as I saw it. So I would put more money into research, let's say, to see how we can come up with this structure in a better way, like as it is. So there's actually not one input when it comes to the final decision, but the client always has a say to what happens to the final project. So the architect initiates the design. The client has the final say to what happens in the project. The structure is just a decision point, because at the end of the day, the structure just serves the building, the core of the building.
Right. So we talked about that. So like, just like clarification, where do civil engineers come? Like, who makes the drawings? Like, suppose someone comes to you, I want a 10th floor building, and he gives you some specifications like, I need a pool, I need these many lifts, I need a emergency escape. Who starts designing? Like, who takes the first step for a building?
Yeah, so the architect takes the first step, and it's usually in form of a sketch. So you give the client an idea that you're gonna sketch when in form of a tower. Maybe you would start to look at elevations, but for such a big project, you cannot actually just go into floor plans, because then you're talking about 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 1 bedroom. So you actually have to go back to the office and set up a whole proposal for the project, and then you come back to the client with a visual representation of what's going to happen to the circulation, what's going to happen to the spaces, and things like that. Now the client is going to look at it and say, oh, he doesn't like, and sometimes when I say the client, it's not the person that's actually paying for the project, but the client usually has an architect as well to represent him, just because some clients do not understand actually what's happening in floor plans. So they usually have a representative that will make sure things are according to what he wants. So once you receive that correction, you get back into the design and make adjustments to floor plans, elevations, and things like that. So the architect is usually the first person. So the consulting architect is the first person to start the design. Now, usually you have consultants. Now, when it comes to structures, once you have the concept design, so in a concept design phase, you have floor plans and elevations and renders and things like that. Once it's ready and it's confirmed that the client wants these floor plans as it is, then you involve the structures and you start to place the columns, start talking about beams, height of the floors, and then you start to talk about the cost, and then the quantity survey comes in. Because when you have a lot of columns, the cost will be higher. But usually, because of the experience, let's say from the structures, these guys kind of already know not to put, they know the amount of columns that they need to actually have a sustainable structure that can hold the building in a low budget form. But yes, it always has to go back to the quantity survey, and they have to still analyze it no matter the experience and come up with a value for it. And then at the end of everything, now putting the structures in the building will change a lot of things in the perspectives, in the, one example is, for example, you build a tower and the lobby is like, let's say 10 by 10. So in a 10 by 10 lobby, maybe you put a column above to support the structure. Maybe you were putting the structures on the, let's say, typical floors, and there's a column that actually lands right in between, like in the center of the lobby. It destroys the entire design. So you have to relook at things. Now this will go back to, do we increase beam depths in order to get larger spans? This will lead to cost and things like that. So there's always these kind of adjustments that are happening within a project.
I guess this was one of the most technical episodes that we have done, and I guess a lot of I don't know, but a lot of people are gonna study like architectural civil engineers. I I doubt they won't go ahead and study. Maybe also. And
Yeah.
yeah, thank you, Abubakar, for coming, and you gave a good overview of what you have done, and quite a bit about your work and what do architectural engineers do, and what does your company kind of work, in what field do they work on, and the interactions within different fields. And I think that the important thing is like coexisting with other people, and I guess you trying to explain to them in words that they understand is what I feel kind of important in a company like where you're working in, because you have people
Yeah.
from different fields interacting, and sometimes you would have to speak to a client who doesn't even know engineering, and things
Yeah.
like that kind of improves you. Thank you for coming, and hope you have hope you discover more of your interest and kind of develop the interest, and hope you play get to play piano more, I guess.
Yeah.
um, yeah, do you have any final words?
Yeah. So in general, I would say that it is important in life to coexist with other people and respect people in general. And this will, you know, this is a main challenge actually for an individual in order to be in a place and, be able to integrate, because when you have a group of people, everyone has his opinions, everyone has his feelings, everyone has his, yes, we can have professional laws like, you know, um, the professional work ethics and things like that to guide us, stopping things like racism and things like that. But then the important thing for each individual is to have that inner control of himself, even without these guidelines. So have respect for the people that you work with, be able to integrate and be more open with them. Now, it's not very easy, and I personally would say that I went through a series of difficulty trying to integrate, because I'm not usually a social person. So it's but with time, if the environment is like good for you, if the people in the environment are understanding, you'll be able to blend in, and things will go on smoothly and seamlessly. So this is just the advice, because life is more importantly about living than all the things that we talk about, like the successes and the other illusions of life, let's say. So it's more about living in unity, in peace, in coexistence. And this in order to achieve this, you just need that factor of respect for each other, for each other's opinions, views, and perspectives, because of the cultural differences, because of the religious differences, and things like that. So this is my final words.
Yeah, thank you again. Thank you very much for your advice, and I'm sure it's also a great advice for introverts who like are not socially up there with others. Before we end this, I would just like to say to our listeners and viewers, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and write a comment to let us know what you feel, what you think about it. And for all of you who have just um, heard or got to know about Abu Bakr, all his links are going to be in the description below. So if you guys want to talk to him personally or send him a message, you're going to find it there. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a good day.